Do you find yourself swept away by the constant change and turmoil around you? Whether personal or professional, these challenges can keep us from living a life of peace and productivity. I'm Liz Hurl, a licensed clinical marriage and family therapist, and I want to show you data-driven strategies to help bring stability and peace to your life. Welcome to the Anchored in Chaos podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Anchored in Chaos.
Hey, guys.
How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
Right. Pretty good. We got some current events that we're going to talk about today. We want to discuss some things that we're a continuous discussion regarding how self-regulation in the age of outbursts. So we're going to try and look at how do we stay grounded in the chaotic world around us when everything feels anything but that.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me back. I'm Dr. Tim Calder. I'll be the co-host. Today, we're diving into something we've both been seeing a lot of lately. We see a lot.
Absolutely.
The media has just been pumping out stories like this, but it has to do with the emotional outbursts that we see with athletes, parents, coaches, crowds, especially associated with sports and activities, and what it says about our ability or our inability, either individually or collectively, to self-regulate ourselves.
Correct. And that, again, isn't just for that sports arena. It's for the public, public outbursts in general.
That's right.
And it seems like I would say any day that we open up social media of any platform, there's a viral going, out where we're just looking at these outbursts and we're commenting on them, whether they're not just coaches throwing equipment or parents involving themselves on the field or having emotional outbursts or screaming obscenities from the sidelines.
Yeah.
That it isn't about just the sports. It's a broader struggle than just that.
That's right. Let's dial it back a little bit, Liz, to two of the things that we've seen in national media, maybe worldwide media, that really have caught our eye. First of all, the Anthony case where a young man stabbed another young man for unapparent reasons, but a life was taken. The other would be where track and field women were actually in mid-race and one hit the other behind the head and took her out of the race. These outbursts, they're all over media. We see them everywhere. And then we see this division of, is it justified, is it not justified? And here comes politics. Right? Before I expand too much on that, I always want to say that I think sports, the event of competition, has everything to do with a cross-section in society where competition is regulated and where competition can be seen and appreciated by onlookers, right? So we have superstar players who get to become just these amazing athletes, and they make all kinds of money, and the cars and the girls, and society has really gloms onto this kind of gladiator mentality, and it becomes to be a really volatile and toxic message at some point, right? And I want to go into that a little bit more.
Oh, absolutely. And so kind of springboarding off of that, one of the things that comes to mind is as we're talking about these outbursts, and there's a justification always to a response of saying, like, this is the reason why I was upset or whatever is transpiring.
Blame.
Correct.
Yeah,
blame. But it really kind of goes into that victimization, right? Like this situation I'm a victim to versus the accountability of self-regulation of when someone is maybe not always being antagonistic. I think that you sent me a reel just the other day of someone bumping into someone at the airport and then them attacking
Stabbed
them.
a guy in the neck.
Yeah. The gentleman that walked away clearly did not have any idea that the bump, but it was barely.
No provocation.
Right.
Yeah.
These kind of encounters that are happening, and really that's our conversation as to maybe why they are happening, and kind of going to that a little bit more around where does this all come from. So we discussed a little bit this morning in Genuine Effort, the trending. When did this trend start? We have some varying opinions of like kind of how that timeline started to develop.
Sure.
I look at it from a psychological aspect, and then you look at it from your own perspective, which is
right.
Understandable.
As a competitive athlete, as a former coach, I'm still coaching today, but more on an individual basis, and a parent, I wear all those hats. Sometimes I wear them all at the same time. The aspect of seeing people who are, let's dial this back. When we talk about coaching, My view on coaching is, especially all the way through up through college, K through college, that is a teaching environment. And
100%.
that teaching environment has been spoiled now at the college ranks because money has now crept in. You can be paid while you go to college, which I think is a bastardization of the effort and the identity to be going to college for education. But also that we now see people rising to a rank and ability because these parents want to foster this vicarious lifestyle through their children. And now we have these almost Tiger Woods. Everybody's a Tiger Woods. Everybody needs to be LeBron James. Everybody, and what happens is they start down this path of it's all or nothing. There's no such thing as loss. And you're going to do everything within your power to win, even if it's somebody else's expense. Right.
Well, what did you say just earlier?
Yeah, that's the Cobra Kai sweep the leg.
Yeah, sweep the leg kind of.
Yeah, if they identify any type of weakness, they'll take you out. And I see this all the time. Liz is privy to my social media feed for this entire week. All I've done is promote videos of episodes that happen on the field, on a court, on the sidelines, in the stands, of people interacting so over the top that we have injuries, dare I say some fatalities. But these parents, coaches, officials, players have just literally gone crazy.
Right.
Right.
So that kind of goes right back to the climate, to this reactivity. Where did it come from? One of the, we talk about this a lot, and it's a fact. It's not that we're trying to beat up social media, but social media is a conflict playing ground for everyone.
It is.
It is where everybody goes to see. I mean, we're privy to that ourselves. I mean, we do the same thing. To these emotional outbursts, they get clicks, they get likes, they get comments, they get engagement. And those algorithms just feed off of one another and feed off of one another.
Exactly right.
And that is just nothing but competitive aggressiveness, not an aggression. That's not, healthy, I would say, sportsmanship at all.
Right.
But
It's good to have competition.
Correct.
But not at the cost of others.
And that's where I think they're confusing passion with that kind of aggression.
Exactly.
They're like that's what we hear a lot, right? They're very passionate about this. And it's like, well, hold on. There's a difference between passion and full-on rageful aggression.
Absolutely. The point I want to point out about all of that is we get to see what should be organized as a game where there are rules and effects. There's time, particularly time, that if for some reason we play this game for an extended period of time, at the end of this time, we agree that it's over and whoever's ahead wins. Well, now it's just chaos. It's chaos on display. And the thing we have is that this chaos doesn't have to be like this. We need to learn how to anchor ourselves, slow down. We need to be able to real-time reevaluate. And that accountability and responsibility is lost.
100%.
And it's completely checked out. What we've done is we've broken away from the actual thinking centers of our brain, the prefrontal cortex. We're all amygdala, we're all emotion, we're all fight or flight, we're all in defense. And by the way, it may not even involve you, but you'll get involved in a fight because my friend's now involved in a fight.
Yes.
And this whirlwind mob mentality where we have bleachers file out into the field, it's horrible. Part of this, historically, Liz, I don't want to wander off too far, but I love hockey. But, the saying for hockey is they went to the fights and a hockey game broke out. Well, why is it like that? I've always wondered what happened to the skill and the limited contact, but now officials just let people fight.
Well, and
they'll take the ice, pull off their gloves, and start fighting. What's that all about?
Well, let's talk about that for a minute.
Absolutely.
And we're kind of talking about where this reactivity comes from. And what's happening there is a fear for individuals to respond, engage, or get involved because of the simple fact that you might get in trouble with the law for responding. You might, at some cost to you.
Oh, yeah.
There's no one backing you in that except yourself. And this kind of goes into that self-worth, that your self-identity of saying, at the end of the day, wrong is wrong. And if no one backs me up, that's fine. It's still wrong.
That's right.
But that's a hard thing that people are struggling with nowadays.
It
because
is.
I don't want to, well, they could be recording. And I'll tell you right now, and you and I have had this conversation several times. It doesn't matter where you go or where you're at in this world. You're always on camera. You're on
You
camera.
should always assume you're on camera.
Yeah.
You bet.
And so act accordingly. But that's where we're getting a little bit of a rub here, because we were just visiting about the reaction of the outbursts are so over the top. I have concerns of a person's mental health and their capability to even regulate brain neurons. I'm not, and your nervous system is everything's haywire.
Right.
And that system is being completely reinforced when you're in that reactive stage.
That's right.
This is how I always respond. And when no one is saying, hey, no, you don't get to do this, then there's nothing stopping me from building on that monster, if you will. And I'm not trying to sound, dramatic when I say that. I'm just saying that we don't have any self-regulation. I shared with you that when I was younger, that my all moms generally do have a look, but my mom would she would call me Elizabeth J. And that's literally it. She would say Elizabeth J. And I would be like, oh, I'd straighten right up and I'd look straight ahead. And I'm like, that was it, right?
Yeah.
It was the understanding of the respect I had for my mother, first off. But I'm going to get in trouble here.
Yeah.
And she expects more from me and my behavior, so I better get in line.
Yeah.
And my mom's watching, so I've got to get myself right because it's appropriate. Well, where we wavered from that is, and I'm trying to stay on topic here, but this coddling of like, express yourself, engage in whatever you're feeling. No.
Well, so in my day and age,
square tires.
When you were, that's right, cave, we were fascinated by fire.
Around with your feet under the car.
That's right. Our coach was as good as a parent. And what our coach said is, might as well be coming right out from the lips of my parents. Because I knew that back in my day, there was such thing as corporal punishment, right?
Sure.
And nowadays, it's corporal punishment is what the coach might make you run a few extra laps, whatever. This is deep. As a coach, you walk a line of how do I motivate, inspire, instruct, correct, direct, protect my young athletes. And I'm speaking to the little guys because I still believe that at the age where kids are young, they're still pliable. They're still relatively clean slates they're malleable. But now the parents have intervened and no longer is the coach the coach. The coach is somebody there to instruct my child, but I'll tell you what my child will do, right? And now the coach is neutered and
polite way of saying it.
That's right. And the coach has had his fangs pulled, and now all the intimidation, even the critical instruction, it's been yanked from him because my little darling doesn't like that. And I'm not going to make my little darling work harder than somebody else. Or maybe my little darling's going to sleep in a little later. He's a big deal, and he doesn't need to come to practice. Now, that goes all the way to the college levels. And you'll hear it from college. You'll hear it from these professional college coaches that they say that these young men and women, predominantly men, are uncoachable. They now see that there's a monetary value to everything they do in the sport, especially in their image. So this is where the social media comes in. They need to get clicks. They need to get viral. They need to be seen because they want to go on to the pros, which was the top level. Now they have a portal where maybe I'll just play a couple good years, make a bag of money, and I don't need to go on to the pros. Well, that means that the college coach has to constantly recruit his own players. Come to practice. Come do stuff.
You have to incentivize them to be accountable in some fashion.
And God forbid I ever punish you for not showing up. Right. If a college player thinks he's a big deal, he's going to tell the coach, I'm a big deal. And I'm not going to sweat. I'm not going to run stairs. I'm not going to do push-ups.
So this is a perfect opportunity to share this other story with you just briefly. And it's today's time. My daughter is a 5th grader, and I really, really enjoy her teacher a lot. She is very direct, and she's not cotton candy and rainbows, and I think that's appropriate for the age she's trying to teach these young people to grow into, and the accountability and responsibility factors, because that's something I truly appreciate about her. my daughter comes home to tell me that she had to walk laps for recess because she was caught talking in class. And she felt like it was very unfair because the next person was talking to her. She was only responding. And so she didn't get to have free play, right? She had to walk laps.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's what happens. And she's like, yeah, but I was just talking to someone who talked to me.
Yeah.
I don't talk to him. Just don't talk to him.
Yeah.
And that's, I think that, and that's, as a parent, that's not simple for me. I want to be clear that I'm like, yeah, I can feel like that really stinks. But the hard lesson there is don't talk to the person, right?
But to reiterate the classroom mentality, she's in the classroom. She's on what she should be an active, a place
Subject
to relax
or whatever it is.
whatever. She's learning her lesson on her time now.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
I don't get to teach you in the classroom, so I'm going to take your time now. That's a great lesson.
Right. And it was nothing harmful. She just had
Absolutely.
she walked laps outside of the class.
Absolutely.
But I think a lot of people have a hard time with that today. Like, well, it's not really their fault. They're very overstimulated.
It's never their fault.
Right. And I will tell you, my beautiful daughters are the chattiest things. And
A little bit like their mom.
I am not chatty.
Go ahead.
But very much so squirrel mentality. They come in with just different stories and I love it and I appreciate it. But there's a place and a time, right?
Yeah.
So when they're in school, they're there for learning. They're there for, their bottom is in that seat for a purpose.
That's right.
And they need to give their attention to their teacher, not to their buddy next to them or their friend or whatever.
That's right.
And that is my expectation. Now, again, back in my time, and I believe yours, it used to be a deal. Like, I remember this from church. I remember this from any setting, my neighbor's house. Do you want me to call your mom? Oh, my heavens. There was nothing worse in the world. And it was just the idea of the disappointment to my mother.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to think, well, you're going to get home and you're going to get beat or you're going to, no, I'm going to get a good talking to. And who do you think you are going over and acting this way at someone else's home? I mean, whatever it may be. So nowadays it's like, go and call them. And there's all these obscenities that children are saying towards these adults.
Yeah.
And then they call the parent and the parent's like, what did you do to my child? And so without parameters on our self-regulation, I know you were going to pick up here where we're talking about what is happening in our brains as far as what's going on.
I mentioned to you that sports are an extension of the classroom. I believe that. Your coach is a teacher and same level of respect. However, as much as I believe in sports, the structure that they provide, the lessons you'll learn about you're not always going to win. Oftentimes you're going to really suck, but you get better at it. But more important to me, the importance that sports are always second in education.
Yes.
I'm not sending you to school to become the next Pele, the next Gretzky, the next Jordan. I'm sending you to school to get an education. Now, I'm not talking college. I'm talking K through 12. And if you think sports are more important than school, you got it 180 out. My sons were both very good at sports. My youngest son, extremely good at sports. But there's never a time I won't pull you off the field if I don't get grades. If I'm not getting grades I know you're capable of, I will call your coach and say you're ineligible this week. You will not play. And I'm not asking. And my sons, they knew how important it was.
They knew how that worked.
That's right.
Right. And the love, again, I always want to go back to the level of respect that they had for you and their mother and the dynamics of their home. So like those are all really important factors.
Right.
Which is when we're missing that, what happens when we're not taught that. We were just recently talking about accountability and responsibility on, I think, episode 20. And that is, how do we balance that when we're not taught that? What happens in our minds? And you're going to talk about neuroscience, which is my favorite.
Yeah. Well, we know through behavioral scientists, behavioral studies, there's decades and decades and decades of this. But the neuroscience behind it too, as we look into the activity of the brain, the amygdala, which is very deep centers to the brain, they're primarily all a limbic center, you might call. They're all very much attributed to mood, behavior, how we act, right? How we act.
Sure.
But when we're in a sports situation, now activity's up, blood pressure is up, all these things are up. And as a result of this competitive nature, individual or team, everybody's a little bit jacked up, right? We're
Yep.
all a little bit jacked up.
Well, that's
Especially,
why your people,
this is where fans come from. Fans means fanatical. This is these people that are in the stands, and they're screaming, they're
nothing wrong with that.
there's
It's
nothing
good.
the matter with
Nothing
that.
went with that.
Nothing the matter with it. Within limits, and we'll talk about that.
That's where we're going.
When they get out of control, we need to hold them accountable too. But what happens on the athlete's part of view is the aspect of this conflict, physical conflict, can result in sometimes injury, sometimes insult. And let's say some guy's just dominating you, and your level of frustration, because you have thought either you are a good player or you're not living up to your own standards, and you got frustration going on, you will abandon your prefrontal cortex. This is your rational thinking.
Critical thinking.
And you will fall right back into this very primitive, you get very physical, you get far more agitated. And now physical contact is now elevated. It's far too rough. And this is where we see kids at play who, if one child is dominating the other one will begin to become much, much emotional until there's usually an outburst. And
Of some sort, sure.
yeah, it's
I share with my clients that it's like someone tap dancing on your amygdala. That's what
yeah,
I describe
absolutely,
it.
yeah. And you perceive that as almost bullying, right? It's a defense of this guy's. If you could think, you'd think, oh, this guy's making me look bad, or damn it, why can't I get this done? And you're mad at yourself, but you're going to take it out on him. In all reality,
And
him,
yourself
her,
a little.
and as a result, your rational thoughts out the window, and now you've become just this emotional, responsive animal. And if you don't keep that in check or be aware of it, or have your team members, coaches, even your family help you dial that down, it'll get you, right? You're gonna pay the price somehow. It's gonna get you, and you'll foul out. You'll be penalized. You'll get a red card or something like that.
Absolutely. And that's just what we're not looking at enough of what's kind of going on in our bodies, specifically here, our brains, which is all connected. And that as this starts transpiring, we have no, I call it lasso, safety net. Like, where is that thing that snatches you up and says, okay, you got to get a hold of yourself? I'm always full of stories because I tell my children and my friends and family and clients that I can look at anything and probably make it therapeutic.
Yeah, sure.
And
it should be.
Then when my son was 6 years old, he was having a birthday party, and one of his peers was kind of roughhousing with him. And I saw the moment he went from roughhousing to like, it wasn't roughhousing anymore. And I looked at him and I just looked right in his eyes and I was like, no. And and I could feel his aggression, like he's ready to take this little guy down because it went from roughhousing into something else, as it does with little boys. And this is like common and normal and natural. And I was just like, we've gone to where the roughhousing has now made us angry.
Yeah.
And having that ability to just look at him and be like, okay, enough's enough. We're going to do something else. And by the way, that wasn't enough for him. He was ready. He squared his back to me and he was ready to go after this little guy. And I was like, hey, look at me. And I'm like, we're doing something else. And so I had to redirect him and we did something else. And it turned into a really, good time. However, and I'm definitely no, mother of the year, but I'm just trying to give an example of that kind of interaction. Where are we stopping ourselves, our parenting, teaching, any type of environment where we're saying, hey, like, let's take a beat, like, let's take a minute because we're kind of feeling overwhelmed here. Because once you go fully emotional and it goes within split seconds, regaining that critical thinking logic part of your brain is very hard.
Yeah, it is. And you've pinned out some things here that can happen. How we can realize that these things are going on. Why is that so important to develop that right away? Why is it important that your coach
and your family
identify that things have escalated, right? And officials, by the way, when officiating has changed quite a bit. I sat on a school board for 8 years. In that, I saw lots of officiating. I saw a trend in officiating that these little guys aren't very good at it, so we're going to let some, for instance, basketball, we're going to let traveling happen, double dribble happen. But you can't do that all the time. Because when is the lesson learned if I never call you on it?
Right. When do I know that I'm now?
Yeah.
Where's the line?
And if all you know how to do is layups and you turn into this LeBron James 15 steps in a travel and no travel call, everybody goes, well, that's not fair. That's not fair. And even just because he's a little guy, you got to correct him. Okay, guys, you can only take 2 steps, what it looks like. And even I've seen officials take players on the court and explain to them, this is why I called it. And he'll explain to them, great teaching moment, great teaching moment. And the coach should reiterate that. But what we see instead is the crowd goes crazy. The player objects. The coaches are waving their arms. That's not how it's supposed to work.
Right.
That's not. And that takes away the true nature of fair competitive sports.
Briefly, I asked you this earlier. When did it become acceptable for this reactive outburst to be met with and tried to navigate or maneuver it versus like shut it down? I don't know why you're acting this way, but you need to knock it off. Versus now there's this try to be persuasive. I can see you're upset and you're really overwhelmed. Versus like, I'm not going to take this type of behavior from you, so you need to knock it off. But now the more that we're allowed to feel ourselves, feel our feelings.
I can tell you, coaching. I used to coach little guys, and I run across them all the time. They're 3 feet taller than me now. But there used to be these little guys who came out onto the field and their shoes weren't tight and, their pants were inside out, and they were awesome. They're just awesome. But here's what happens is as they grow, these little darlings, I like to call them, begin to misbehave. They become flippant to the coach, to the official. And by the way, guess who's got their back? Mom and dad. You'll hear mom and dad behind the backstop screaming at the coach, or screaming at the coaches, screaming at the officials. Let him alone. Let him do this. Let him do this. He didn't do anything wrong. Exactly where that kid got that attitude is he learned it from them. Mm-hmm. Now, I've said this many times. We are seeing the fruit of this I can be anything I want participation trophy realm, where everybody's a winner, nobody's a loser. You didn't make any bad decisions. This is not the right one. His is more right than yours, right? And what happens is officials start to shut off officiating, and parents see things going wrong in the bleachers. Officials, school supervisors, principals, they see things going wrong in the bleachers that bleeds over into the athlete onto the court. Where do I see it go wrong? I see it we're in about the 2nd or 3rd generation where my little darling can't do any wrong and you're not going to tell him what to do. Mm-hmm. Right now, real time, we're watching Deion Sanders' son, Sandifer, I think his first name is, Sanders, is playing out a role before the whole world where he's telling everybody where he's going to go and what he's going to do as a college athlete. He's told people in press conferences, press releases, I don't think you know who my dad is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
That's how he wants to run his career.
Yeah, I'm not familiar. I know you shared briefly with what that is.
And on the other side of that coin, I've seen Deion Sanders on podcasts say, I'm not a helicopter parent. And then they'll go, yeah, you are. You're a helicopter parent. And he goes, no, I'm not. But what he's saying, in the same breath, he'll say, if he doesn't get the team he chooses in the position he wants, I'm going to stop head coaching at Colorado for the Buffaloes. And guess what? This kid didn't get picked, and he gave up his coaching to punish everyone, right?
Sure.
What are we learning from all this? Tell me again. I don't understand it. I think it's perverse.
Oh, well, that sounds very ego-driven.
Oh,
so, yeah. So
horrible.
When we're talking about something of this nature, I think that we have to, there's always something, why do we respond? Why do we do these things? What gives us the entitlement, dare I say, to respond and be this way? Yeah. A lot of the time, individuals actually don't care for the way this feels as a person. It does not feel good to being out of control. So whenever your body or your mind is out of control, it feels horrible. Yeah. And it's a perceived idea that I have some sort of righteous mentality to be able to do this. Like, I can do this because I'm right in the way I believe that I'm right, because I'm down this rabbit hole and there's no way going back from it. And I've just got to dig my heels in here and hopefully nobody notices, which everybody notices. It's how do we stop all of that? Is this some of the things that we're going to talk about how to address this is older than Dr. Caldwell.
Hey,
And that
hey,
is
hey now.
the things that I like to talk about is, of course, our self-regulation skills.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to sound so therapeutically that people, don't care for, but it's like, take a beat. Like, just
Absolutely.
if I could tell anyone how many times if I had a penny for every time I've told an individual, not just my family, friends, clients, individuals alike, step away from an environment, a situation, take a minute to kind of check yourself and not worry. Everybody is worried what everybody else is doing and saying and acting and being. And then we involve ourselves in their emotion and their
That's right.
feedback. And then we're feeding off that. And by then you're so down into this reaction, there's no way coming back from it. Right.
Yeah.
And so when I say take a minute, just like take a breath to be like, hey, I need a minute. I teach my girls and my son this all the time. It's like, I don't care if people like it or not. I need a minute. And it generally people are kind of a little.
Just that pause. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the next thing, because what happens next is if you don't give me a minute, the next thing's out of my mouth is going to be really hurtful.
Sure. Now, from a coaching aspect, that take a minute. It used to be competitive athletes. Let's say it can be anything on a field or a court, especially team driven. What'll happen is something happens and the activity starts to get a bit more physical. It's a lot faster. A coach should literally be able to go, whoa, time.
Yes.
Bring it in. And if I was a coach, I would say, take a knee, and everyone would take a knee. I'm not asking you to. You're not going to stand around with your hands like you take a knee.
Yeah.
Because you're part of a team.
Yep.
And you do everything as a team. And that's where that all got swapped out. Is, you got players grabbing the board and they're going to show a coach. That's not going to happen, brother. That's not going to happen. Not only that, you're going to say, all right, you guys, you're just going faster and faster and making more and more mistakes. Take 4 deep breaths. I'll talk, you listen. I want you guys to practice this. First of all, you are a team. I know you're a good player. I know that you score a lot, but you need to see your team. And that is, this player is always open. You need to get that ball to him. Even if he doesn't score, you're not getting it done. Give him a chance. And this is part of being a coach. I've had, we call it the pitcher's son. You're coaching, and it seems to me all of the head coaches, all their sons are the pitchers, right? Because I want my son to be the pitcher. No, that's not how that works.
Okay.
I've had people who are really good at baseball under my guidance. Fathers want to be my assistant coach, and all they do is dog me. Why isn't my son in there? Don't you want to win? Yeah, I want to win. So does everybody else on the bench, because you don't let him play. If I let your son play, he'd play the entire game, and none of those guys get. And that's my job as a coach, is to teach those guys, because how can he get better watching your son play? He needs to play. How can your son learn to be a part of a team and to dial it all back if he doesn't know how to sit on the bench? We have to take turns at being players on a team. That's lost. It's lost. It's all driven by what's the scoreboard, the aspect of practice to learn, and then what we say, hang the art. What all that hard work shows up on game day. I don't get to badger you. We've been over this and over. This is your time to do it. But if you haven't learned how to do these things by game day, it's going to show up.
Right.
And what I'm trying to do is foster good sportsmanship. I don't even hear that word anymore.
Right. No, not at all.
And see people get knocked down and picked up by their opponent. It was an instruction to my son who played baseball. He was an amazing player. But every time he's playing third base or pitcher, ironically, when somebody dings a ball, when he's standing on your bag, you're going to tell him, nice job, right? Nice run, nice score, nice. And in turn, he earned the respect of all the other team members because he knew this guy's straight up.
He's a straight up good guy.
We're just having a game.
We're just having a game,
We're
right?
playing a game. Yeah.
We're all competitive. We all want to win, but at the end of the day, we can, still acknowledge that someone else. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I talk about a lot is like the reframing of a situation. So you just did a really good job of kind of illustrating what would go on a team field.
Yeah.
In a situation where we're interacting with someone else and they're berating and they're kind of going into attacking characteristics and things of that nature. First off, I always share with individuals to stop engaging. Like, You do not have to listen to someone berate you and
Yep.
feel like they have their
Yep.
some sort of ability or entitlement to do so. If you're having a disagreement with a good friend or a partner or an adult child or even just a small child, and you know you're rattled and you've had a really long day and everything's exhausting you and it's just one more thing. And when someone goes to ask you a question, you bite back hard and you're like, oh, great. Well, what happens sometimes is we get into, now I feel like I've responded like a jerk and now I'm even more angry at that. So
Yeah.
then, you know how we're compounding and we're building.
Yeah.
In those moments, or if you're in a conversation and you're not, I call it reaching the other person. Like I keep trying to share something and I'm not reaching them. When I say pause and reframe, I always say to go into a state, like even if I always try and say, take yourself out of the space that you're in, like go into the bathroom or go somewhere. When I go back out there, what is it that I want to listen to? And what is it that I want to say?
Yeah.
I want to reframe how this is going to go
Yeah.
with the productivity of the other individual and myself.
Yeah.
And I want to give grace to both. And I want to give some compassion around
Sure.
whatever it is. We've both had a long day. We both misunderstood each other, whatever it is. And if we could just practice that, but we get so dug into our, self-righteous mentality of like, no, you're not listening. What I'm trying to say is, and everything is lost. I tell people this all the time. Once you reach that point, nothing gets across. You're dead in the water. You're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah,
and then you get more reactive.
That's right. Those doors. So, okay. So neurologically, let's say behavioral sciences, the body and mind are geared towards, if you ask it a question, the natural response or your relaxation has a door that closes because it feels like it's now under some type of scrutiny or a test. But there's a thing called elicitation, and that is where you can say, you did a really good job. What do you think you could do next? Although a question, I'm not criticizing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking you, what do you, and you have now the opportunity to use that prefrontal cortex, that big brain humans have, and to express themselves. And okay, I think I could get down court faster, or I need to make sure I'm covering the field and watching everybody around me, whatever the excuse is. But we need to stop criticizing coaches, parents, even fellow players, to the point where we shut people down. We need to go, you did that really well.
Mm-hmm.
We call that a manager sandwich. Something good, something bad, something good again. You did a really good job, but I really need you to do better. Now let's go out there and win.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's a very scripted. But it's old school. But in that the message needs to be, look, I'm not gonna, maybe you are one of those people that if I come at you the wrong way, they're gonna shut down and I can't reach them at all. But you could certainly say, you're doing really, really well at this. I'd like to see you. And then they'll go, okay,
So
that's not such a big deal. I can do that.
Yep. One of the things I want to talk about here when we're talking about how to address things, and we shared this before as well, the expansion of an individual. So as a person that you're working on your own self-regulation, how you respond, how you perceive situations, how you see things going in the way they should be going. That's kind of how we all kind of direct ourselves. It's like, well, this is the way I've understand it to be, therefore it should be in this manner.
Mm-hmm.
And no, when all of that is transpiring, it's being able to also understand that the other person doesn't respond the way you respond. So what I mean by that is if you see someone getting upset, tone changing, whatever it is, or they just go great, real big outbursts like what we're seeing, it's how do we withdraw, which I think there's a power play issue going on today that if I withdraw and don't respond, that's some sort of weak component of myself versus like, actually, this is really just not worth my energy and this person's going to just spiral out of control and I just don't want to deal with that. Versus like, know your audience. That's one of the things I want to talk about is like, know who you're responding to, because sometimes people want to really engage with someone and say, hey, I'm sorry, that wasn't the way I intended that to land and I apologize about that. Well, that person is so far emotionally dysregulated into, you did this on purpose. I know what you meant. And it's like, okay, I can't reach them. So that's disengagement time. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Don't keep trying to reach them. You don't understand what I was trying to do. And, still trying to reach one another. It isn't about anyone winning when we think about like when I call it the one down position. when we take a step back and say, this is going nowhere, this is fruitless, and it only gets worse from here.
Yeah.
People's feelings get hurt, people get more reacted, people can get physically hurt or their life taken, all out of these emotional, things that are spiraling out of control. When this is happening, how do we detach performance from self-worth is kind of where I was going with that kind of mentality.
Well, as I said, all of those qualities are a must, but they need to be practiced, again, not just by the athlete, but by everybody around them. And in turn, it's your job too to regulate your other friends too. This is a part I think is really important to discuss, is that as coaches, as parents, as fans, and even officials, when we see something wrong, you say something. That got lost in translation.
And how we say it when we say something.
Well, not only that, is saying something is now an affront.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
It's officially
Taboo.
a bad thing. I'm going to just build a scenario, and I know everybody's seen it. You go to a game, basketball, soccer, whatever, and you have two passionate parents. And these passionate parents are just escalating and escalating. And now they're not sitting, they're standing, and they're yelling. And now the yelling gets louder. And now the yelling is directed specifically at players. And now the yelling is specifically directed at the coach and at the officials. And now they're on the sidelines, right? They're even stepping on. That is where administration, that's where the coaches can look down at those people and make sure that they see you. And at some point, a message needs to be sent to them. They need to calm down, or I'm going to ask them to leave. Now, everyone will just freak out about that, right? Is it racist? My First Amendment, I can say what I want. I can do what I want. I pay for my kids to be here. You do. But in a social environment, we need to learn how to dial it back and communicate better. You're not doing anybody any service. You're not helping on the field. You're only hurting yourself, and you're making it horrible for people around you. Now, I don't mean to be a wet blanket, but what I'm saying is these people who are fans, and there are people who are just absolute fanatics. I just want to give them a little slice, especially when it comes to pro sports. I want to give them a little dose of what reality is. You may be a fan. You may buy their jerseys. I knew a guy whose entire basement was the Cleveland Browns. His lampshades were Cleveland Browns. But in reality, they don't know you from Adam. They wouldn't throw water on you.
Stop bursting everyone's bubble.
They wouldn't throw water on you if you were on fire. They would drive right past you if you were dying of thirst. They don't care about you. Why are you so invested in them?
Because, and I can appreciate what you're saying. And it does seem that simple. But this is something where experiences become a part of our identity.
Sure.
And it's that belief.
Archetypal. They become archetypes.
Right.
Heroes.
Correct.
Yes.
So when I say they become a part of our identity, and, I am, without this is, I'm not sure how I operate without my love of this, or this is how I identify myself, or whatever. Yes. There's an ownership to it. There's just something that is completely involved in the self that feels,
oh, sure.
That's where it comes from. So that's what I'm saying. From another individual, they could look at it and say, well, that's really over the top. I've seen people, like a certain outfit, and then they wear it every single day. And it's just well, they just love that outfit or whatever. And now I shared with you, my mom had 44 cookie jars, because she loved cookie jars. And I was where are we going to keep all these cookie jars? Yeah. But she still got and we still kept buying her cookie jars. But it's just the idea that it becomes something that's treasured to them, and it becomes,
they identify with it
as such a part of them.
Sure.
So yes, perhaps they wouldn't know you on the street or put you out with fire pieces. That's little.
It's
cool.
True. It's true. It's true. Why would a multi-millionaire care about little old beer gut you?
Well, because
they don't.
Okay.
They don't. And this is a harsh reality. I don't watch pro sports. My bitterness towards, if you get paid, whether you do a good job or not, that's not really 100%. Well, how I got so bitter about this is the Larry Holmes Tyson fight. When Larry Holmes fought Tyson, Larry Holmes looked right in the camera, and win or lose, I make $7 million. And guess what? He ceremoniously went out there and got his teeth knocked out his throat, and he flopped around like a fish for $7 million. And I'm just saying, why don't you just give him the money and let's not fight?
Yeah, because it's
No.
entertainment.
The idea behind that on the competitive realm is if there's one winner, you'll see competition. With one winner, that's the prize. If you see competitions, either singular or as a team, stop paying these guys these outrageous prices to just run a pigskin down the thing. You have to win the game to get paid. That's competition.
So you're giving a perfect example of that competitive emotional feeling that we get around something when it's not being done correctly in orderly fashion that it previously was done. And now everything is evolving and it's changing. And as far as, how we see sports and how we see, when I say just being out in public, we've really talked a lot about sports today, which is fine, but just walking around and being in public and just engaging one another, holding doors open, courtesy, how are you, good morning, things of that nature, that isn't so like we're so locked into ourselves that we're, missing the world that's going on around us because we have to defend ourselves from it because everyone's walking around in a slow, hostile state all the time, which is really unfortunate. So how do we address it? What do we do? I mean, we've talked about a few things. We have to recognize when we're in high emotional environments. We have to recognize that within self. Hey, I always joke about that around the holidays. People are like, okay, now I'm going back over to, whoever's house and it's kind of crazy. So if we know we're going to be in an environment that kind of causes that emotional angst within us, we have to start identifying that and looking at how we handle ourselves. And we've talked about being able to take a minute. Mindfulness, again, it's a big buzzword, but it is a very, very helpful, scientifically proving how we regulate our breathing, regulates our nervous system.
Yeah.
And it's like, I know they're going to ask me 50 questions about this and I don't want to answer this. So how do I take care of myself in this moment? Like whatever it is, and start taking care of ourselves and stop maybe expecting the other individuals around us to take care of us.
Yeah, sure.
Like, you know what? Hey, when I'm there, take care of me in this fashion. Now I'm all about support. Now I talk to families about this. Like, you have that one person in the room you can look at and you're like, hey, like you're the person I'm going to go over to and we're going to be able to connect and stay grounded together. But more importantly, how do I not get overly overstimulated?
Yeah, you get too amped up over a situation. Yeah. Well, okay. So beyond sports, then I'm going to dip into military training. So in military training, you learn that you are a part of a team and that you are no good as an individual. You may have skills, you may be highly skilled, but you are no good without the support of your team. And I might add, in your private life, very few people are self-made. They may have done a lot of the work by themselves, but they still have family behind them somewhere. From the military aspect, I would always say, I want people to know that you are a part of something bigger than you. And as a team, you will reflect your team. Win or lose, the team won or lost. He didn't lose the game because of a mess up. You didn't win the game because you made more baskets than the other guy. Stop that. Coaches, stop that. Parents, stop that. Your little darlings they are numbers in a statistical impossibility if you think your little boy's going to go play in the NBA. I don't care how good you are. It's I think it used to be 1 in like 100,000. And then it's slowly, because there's so many different teams, and that's 1 in 10,000 or something like that. But even as a D1, high D level player in the college realm, you may not go on to the pro ranks, especially if you're not somebody who gives back to the team. And that's one of the things that breaks these young men and women, is that they think that their special skill set is just untouchable and everybody needs to do what I say and the world revolves around. That's not how the world works.
No. And kind of, I would say jumping off of that is when you're talking about how to address, I think the team mentality is a great example of no one, no matter what, when there's a lot of great stories out there, people striving and persevering and pushing through. And there was someone somewhere in their timeline that did encourage them. And that was a part of their team at some point in their life, varying different.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So when people are like, I made this on my own, it's like, you may have strived very hardly and you have attained a lot solely at different aspects, but there are people a part of that, that we should humble ourselves in acknowledgement. So when we talk about like reframing our and shifting our narrative and our mindset, we go into a lot of negative self-talk. I'm a failure. I lost this. I'm such a loser. All those things. I screwed up again. It's always my fault. Versus how do we learn to improve it within ourselves and saying like, this isn't a wonderful time for me.
Yeah.
First off, but the mindset has to shift and how we look at this. This is an opportunity for me. Like I don't want any more opportunities. Like I'm full up. And that's not how life works. It just continues to present you with opportunities to say, all right, so this is how this went. It didn't go in the way you wanted. It doesn't mean you failed. It's uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good, but doesn't equal that you're a failure or you're a loser. Like how we shift that. So when someone is in front of us calling us those names or belittle us in whatever fashion that we had previously believed we were, we react less to it because we know that's not true.
That's true. Yeah.
We know that's not true.
Yeah,
we know we built that neurologically within how we reprocess.
That armor.
Yeah, is in there. It's like, yeah, I used to think that way, but I don't. So they have less power in their words. And I think that's really important that we try and work on that a little bit more for ourselves when we are involved in situations that might draw in this type of, because you never know when reactions come or outbursts happen. They're over the smallest little things of
they are
miscommunications and misunderstandings. I think, like I said, it's kind of unfortunate. We're kind of walking around a little like hostile. Yeah.
Yeah. A couple of things. Neuro-linguistic programming. That was a term brought forward and popularized by Tony Robbins. So it's like state management. Some of the tricks that we learn through those very same behavioral scientists and the neurosciences. Let's say things are going south. You're not having a very good game. You're not doing very well. Now, this doesn't have to be sports. It could be business. Stop talking to yourself like I. Start if you're not going to take care of yourself, take care of somebody else. So start calling yourself you or Tim. All right, Tim, you can do better than this.
Nice.
Not I messed that up. No. Tim, I want you to work on this, Tim. You be the coach. You get to be the player too. And by utilizing that type of phraseology and the way you deliver and think about yourself, Jordan Peterson brought forth this information who said, people won't take care of themselves, but they'll take care of their pets, right? They'll take their pets to the vets. They'll give their pets. Absolutely. Take care of yourself. Do the same thing. Stop beating up on you or I messed this up, I this, and start taking care of you, right? You can do better than this. I've seen you do this, but you can do this again. That's one approach to it. The other is rewarding the positive behavior and not punishing, but just don't keep inflating the bad behavior. For instance, I remember from really great golfing coaches, and they used to teach their golf students that when they made a really good chip, is that they should reward themselves, literally by patting themselves. All right, man. Good job. And this is what
the physical
and this is what this feels like. I'm closing a circuit neurologically, physically, and tactile stimulation. But you're not going to grit your teeth and slam your club when you don't get it. That you're going to have. Golf is a strange sport. You can hit 1,000 golf balls, and it will take that one sweet hit, and you're sold. You're going to do it. You hit another 1,000. Because you're looking for that sweet hit. Well, quit punishing yourself for the 999. Reward yourself on the 1, and pretty soon it's 2, so it's 3. And now you're hitting buckets of balls like you should. And that reward system builds this neuro-linguistic programming. I taught myself how to do better. I taught myself how to feel better, right?
Right.
Yeah.
When you're challenged, then you have a little bit more armor and resiliency, verbal part. The one other aspect I want to touch on is how this affects us physically, our physiological health, and what happens within us. The chronic stress responses that we've constantly talked about, elevated cortisol, high blood pressure, muscle tension, all of these things that happen. I mean, how many times have I've heard about where people are were so upset that they had a heart attack or they had
Ulcers.
Oh goodness, ulcers.
Yeah,
Ooh,
ulcers.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's your body. I tell people chiropractically and from neuroscience, you're a walking museum. Every injury and experience you've ever had in your life, is this going to be an age chunk? No, it's not. Is you're a museum. The first time I tried to walk and those pratfalls, first time I fell down a flight of stairs or off my tricycle, those injuries are in you. There's an emotional response to all those things. Now, that leads into real trauma.
Sure,
right?
absolutely.
First car wreck I was in,
Yes.
first time I was ever beaten or abused, whatever the scenario is that may mar or scar, that's in you too. Well, you know you have it in you. I'm telling you, you have full reign over your own mental capacity. You can do this.
You can.
And
You can.
take charge of these things and just say, look, that was then. This is now. New day, new way. It's either one day it'll happen or day one, like The Rock says, which I can't stand that guy. But anyway, it's all about how you build and frame your world. And if it's going to be in sports, especially on a team, you're part of a team. So suck it up, Buttercup, because win or lose, you didn't do it by yourself.
No. And, going back to when you said that the first thing, the ability to build this resilience, it is so challenging. And it frustrates me as, a human person, and that life is really, really hard and it's exhausting and we're tired. It's like, I don't want to be resilient. I want to be tired. I just want to lay down. Okay, well, you get 10 minutes. Like you get 15 minutes and then you have to get back up. Yeah. And it's like, but the problem is sometimes it's not even, worth doing that because you may just stay there. It's so comfortable wallowing in my self-pity.
Yeah, sure.
Than it is to get up and say, hey, I've got to build some awareness around this.
That's absolutely true.
Some intentional action around this that I have to do. And it's like, well, that's a lot of work. I tell everybody all the time, when you go to therapy, it's work. It's not a, interaction of friendship. It's a problem solving of behaviors and understandings and dynamics on all kinds of things that you explore. And you're like, well, this isn't fun at all.
I think people, for instance, therapy like that, I think people think you go in and they take your problems away.
Oh, no.
But that's not it at all.
It isn't. It's one of the most humbling experiences that I have ever had in my life to work with individuals. But for them to see their capability is the biggest reward of my job. And that's when I say, you can do this. It's going to be really, really challenging, but you can do it. Same thing on your end. Absolutely.
To see someone, they're oftentimes broken, but they're usually defeated mentally or emotionally. But to see, part of their regular purchase is that they're always a little down and no energy and kind of a victimology that they carry through life. But as you get better at training, you begin to reverse this swirl around the drain. Now you bring it to a standstill. Now you're beginning to spin it the other way. I'm not this weak person. I can do more than I did before. I had stamina that surprised me. I got stronger. And then pretty soon this whole new person emerges. It's beautiful to see.
Yeah.
It really is beautiful to see.
And it's, I imagine, a joy for you to see. I know that I've had the opportunity to meet a few of your clients that are going through great transitions in their life right now that I've had the opportunity to see. And it's been encouraging for me to see as well. And, why we want individuals to kind of maybe hear and take away today is when I talk about the physiological responses of what builds up in our body. And when I talk about stress and cortisol and blood pressure and all the things that goes into bigger things, right? Heart disease and our weakened immune system disrupts our sleep, all those things that is, it just attacks us at our physiological level. And we don't even,
without a doubt,
we don't see it compounding, if you will. You're just like, I shared with you that I have this strain in my shoulder that I've been dealing with for a while. And I feel like I'm constantly like this.
It has a name now, doesn't it?
Yes. I call it Tim.
Oh, okay.
Anyhow. But
anyway,
it is a pain in my neck, literally. And I'm like, I have to work more on just like my own relaxation, like my own, relax your body, just take a breath, and we have to be mindful of this because it literally is in our bodies, in our cells, and killing us. It's killing us.
Yeah, it absolutely will. And like I said earlier, that manifests itself, those stresses. So here's an interesting experiment for people to do at home. This has to do with neuro-linguistic programming. You can sit on a stool, and I want you to just be aware of how you're sitting. Just relax. And then I want you to think of really negative thoughts in your life, just the horrible things or things that really damage you. And you will feel yourself begin to shrink. In a snap of the fingers, you can then, without any more prompting, I'll go, now I want you to remember the happiest day, the day you got your puppy or you got married or you had your child, and your entire body will change. Your physiologic effect changes. Well, that can happen to you too. And that's what's neat about the physical activity that I provide people when they get to train, is that it's not always tangible when we work on the mental part of our psychology, but it is very much tangible when we see physically, I wasn't able to do this. I wasn't able to do this. I can do this. And I remember when we were training, Liz, one time I think we were doing chest supported back rows, and you had done it and you'd done it really good. And I put a set of 50s in front of you and you didn't believe you could do it, but you could do it. You really did do it. And when the light comes on, ding, you're bitten. And now that spin is spinning the other way.
Right.
And this is what we can apply towards our life. I have to believe good Lord put everything in you you're supposed to have, and that you can reverse almost any disease process if you're asking the right questions, taking the right steps, and making the effort to change that all around. That's what genuine effort is all about. It takes your genuine effort. Not this half-hearted, somebody's got to save me. There's no Calvary. It's you.
Right, absolutely.
Save you. Yeah. Take care of you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We've always said no one's coming. So some closing thoughts here are, whether, whatever aspect of this that you're hearing this from, an athlete, a coach, or just someone trying to navigate our chaotic world that we're in, you don't have to be a slave to your behaviors and your reactions. And we have control over ourselves. You can train your mind like you train your body.
Yeah, that's right. And it will respond. And this is we could talk more about this. The fact that coaching and the competitive side have been in my life for such a long time, there are aspects I would love to instill upon coaches, especially when they get frustrated with these athletes who don't respond to the coaching aspect. They want to do what they want to do. And I would try to just make everybody more aware of the simple fact that you're never alone, and that we are always just animals scratching at glass, right, Liz? We have these phones that have the whole world at our disposal. And if you have questions about what we're supposed to be doing or how we're supposed to be doing, you can ask those questions. Do your own research, listen to practical advice that sounds like it's real, not popular stuff, not woo-woo-y stuff, but that we have the opportunity to take care of ourselves. And that's what this is all about.
Absolutely.
That's what the podcast is all about.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Liz,
good.
This was a good topic. Thanks for talking. And again, we ask people to join us and comment and
like, share, and subscribe.
All those things.
So we want to give you a little bit of a nugget. Our next episode coming up will actually be over genuine effort in bodybuilding systems. It'll be all about Dr. Caldwell and his new adventure. Maybe it's both.
It's an adventure.
It's an adventure. He will be starting his online training coaching.
Yeah.
So we're going to be able to give you all the great details and, Dr. Caldwell's mission and goal in being able to continue to help people work on their body and their mind and their mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah,
and,
that's exactly right.
So we hope you join us for that next episode. Thanks for listening.
Absolutely. Please. You guys take care of yourselves.
Absolutely. And be kind.
Absolutely.
To yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And to others.
All right, guys.
Don't go wild on everybody.
Talk to you later.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
This show is part of the ICT Podcast Network. For more information, visit ictpod.net.